At the time of recording this, it's almost Christmas, and this time of year always feels the same, right? You know, you've just bought a mysterious factory from a stranger, it's pumping out an enormous quantity of sentient, gloopy friends, and you've got to ship them off as quickly as you can in the hope of just making a profit. And to make matters worse, your best friend is doing exactly the same thing across the road.
That mug is gonna be commercially crushed into the ground by me, for reasons we'll come back to later.
So this is a two-player head-to-head game in which you're going to be both pulling tiles out of a bag, and you'll be playing these tiles to create pipelines that connect one of these little machines to one of these little conveyor belts on either side of the factory. On the second phase of your turn, you're going to be playing truck cards, finding the truck that matches the one on your card and placing it alongside your factory. If at any point you have a situation whereby an empty slot on one of your trucks is aligned with a pipeline conveyor belt that's fully hooked up to a machine, then and with that, you've just shipped some cargo. Congratulations, it is officially no longer your problem. I mean, where is it going? It doesn't matter. Has it actually been sold? Shh, stop asking questions. And I know what you're thinking, but don't adjust your television sets. It really is this small. See for comparison a standardized reference pear and a standardized reference pineapple. So it's a small, light two-player game about shipping cute little things around and making nice pipelines. No, 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 no. This is the first of many deceptions that this little container brings with it. It makes Pandora's box look like milk toast Tupperware. This cute little thing is not a cute or little experience. It's fiddly and it's tough. The second small surprise here is there's not really much curious about the nature of this cargo. There is a rule here that means you're not allowed to place two of the same type of cargo next to each other on a truck, which does imply a degree of volatility. But in reality, you may as well be shipping spam and jam. And this does mean, of course, that these pleasantly gloopy prop friends I've lovingly crafted at this point can just go into the bin. The more human-eyed viewers may have noticed that this is a game by Ryan Courtney, the same chap who gave us Pipeline, a game we reviewed last year that had many of you asking, is Matt okay? Pipeline was a deceptive beast in that it looked like a game about making lovely pipes. But actually it was a capitalist nightmare in which your economic survival occasionally hinged on your ability to make lovely pipes. Which honestly was a big disappointment for me as Shut Up and Sit Down's resident pipe puzzle lover. But a disappointment I easily got over in the fact that the economic puzzle of that game was ruddy, bloody brilliant. But with curious cargo, surely now is the time for my gentle, lovely pipe puzzle. And there was a rule in the manual that felt like a cooling balm for my future mind, informing me that just place pipes and you can't move them after you've placed them, but in the future, if you want to, you can just overlap and overlay and change something you've done before to make it what you want now. And this is a system that just openly encourages you to do the best you can with the intention of fixing it up later. The only rule about when you're placing these overlapping tiles is they have to be completely flush and flat on the board. You can't have them being wobbly and angular, which is where this wonderful rule comes into play. Each player gets 5 of these little scaffolding tiles, which you can use to prop up a wonky tile. A rule that's so simple but more physically satisfying than a lot of entire board games. But here's where we stumble onto the third big shocker, because surely a mechanic like this makes the game more forgiving, gentler. Well, maybe not. No. I mean, yes, you can and will use this ability to bumble through games like a comedically crap robot, but there's a point in playing Curious Cargo that you realise that the ideal way to use this overlapping technique is to start treating the game like a modular 3-dimensional puzzle in which a useless tile might be invaluable if you only intend to use half of the tile, knowing that you're going to overlay it with another one in the future, and even just trying to explain this element of the game makes my head hurt. Hello, welcome to the Hell Zone. I'd recommend you take your jacket off. It is already extremely spicy in here. And so, look, we've now got the mechanic from the manual that seemed to soften some of the edges of the game's design. And in reality, once you get into it, you realise it's simply sharpening unseen edges that you just weren't aware of yet. And this is a good time to remind you that this isn't just a two-player game, but it is very much a head-to-head game. And in regard to unseen edges, sometimes the competition here isn't very visible, but let me assure you that it is very, very real. The game ends when one player has shipped the amount of cargo written on the top of their sheet, has a total of 10 complete connections going from machines to conveyor belts, or when a player has intercepted 4 of the same type of bits of cargo from the other player's factory, because you are going to be stealing from each other. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that, the theft. Every time you mysteriously summon a new truck to your factory, every other truck in this line will be pushed along. And at this point, immediately, you'll check your little pipelines, and anything connected to a machine, to a free slot, will immediately be filled up from these pipes. Blub, 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 ding. It's always a really good sign playing a board game if you find yourself making silly noises, I think. It means they've really nailed the mechanics and the theme. But as soon as a truck is added that would push any of your trucks even just slightly past the end of this 10-space parking bay, well, it immediately leaves your factory. And where do trucks go when they leave the factory, mummy? Well, they'll go on to this track here, where your goods may be immediately intercepted by that awful bad person just across the road. Because, oh, look, you've got conveyor belts on both sides of your factory, which means that, yes, you build a network on here to get your stuff onto trucks, but you'll build a network on the other side to line up things in the same fashion and hopefully steal the goods straight off the truck that they've just been put onto and get yourself some sweet, sweet bonuses in the process. And bonuses in this game are everywhere. Draw a truck card, take a token that gets you extra turns when you're doing the pipe stuff, or have a truck token that broadly just lets you do great stuff with trucks. Take a special connector that will potentially connect one machine to 3 different conveyor belts. At the start of the game, your cup will floweth overeth with bountiful bonuses until slowly the lubricating gloop that keeps your machine well oiled starts to become turgid and a little too thick for comfort. And you get to your construction phase and you go, oh, I'll do this, and that doesn't do anything new. And then you get to the truck phase and you look at your cards and you go, oh, I'm gonna pass again. You see, it's these bonuses that act like little pockets of hot air that just keep your graph going upward. And actually, it's these that make this game feel like you're running a factory. Something that this game does really well, and something that a lot of board games don't quite manage. Often, they'll get into the minutiae of it, moving items around conveyor belts. And I find that doesn't actually work that well. It's hard to remember exactly where things were, and also that beautiful flow of a conveyor belt. It's not a weird thing, I assure you. That's something that you can't really emulate physically without an actual conveyor belt. But Curious Cargo zooms back from that and it looks at the idea of productivity and factory lines in a much more holistic fashion. And these bonuses work because ideally you want to be getting them every round. You want to be doing something that unlocks a new bonus, that unlocks a new bonus, that unlocks a new bonus. Bonus is kind of the wrong word. These things feel crucial, and when you have a turn where you could really do with a bonus token and you just don't have it, suddenly it really does feel like your whole machine just ground to a halt. But this isn't a loss of momentum and a sticking point that feels bad. If anything, it's an aspirational problem. It's the kind of feeling that you didn't quite make the jump, but you were so close to making the jump. And next time, you're going to make the jump. It's the sort of thing that just makes you want to play it again immediately. That sense that there is a perfect flow to this game, that you can just squeeze through and land it every time. And in that regard, this game shares so much DNA with a fabulous pipeline. And because this is a two-player head-to-head game, you'll find some solidarity in the moments where your machine clogs up. I can't do anything for 2 turns now, but in 5 minutes, you'll be facing the exact same problem. That's when the game is fairly matched. When you're up against an opponent that isn't a fair match.
I will crush that boy like a bucket of broken biscuits.
He will, and he will, and he has. All right? Look, in the same way that you wouldn't play hide and seek with the Predator, Curious Cargo can be a bit dispiriting if you're playing against someone who is much, much better, when there is so much room within this design to be much, much better. It's frustrating to want to celebrate the fact that you shipped 3 bits of cargo and then to look over and realise that your competitor has shipped 6 and also seemingly effortlessly created a network which has snaffled up everything you've shipped so far. And it's even when I'm now describing some of this game's potential shortcomings that I'm just filled with such a strong desire to be playing this game right now. And really that's because we're starting to cut through the gloopy surface here and getting into the crunch of the design. And the crunch beneath this gloop is hot. Let me tell you a couple of rules that are going to make you go, ooh. Firstly, any pipe pieces you do not place on your turn will be put into storage. You cannot reorganize your storage, but it operates as a double bin system. And how you choose to use these 2 bins is entirely up to you. Ooh. Next, these trucks are obviously all different sizes. So which ones you choose to place will not only affect how well you're able to fill up empty gaps in all of your trucks, they'll also affect the nature of when and where those trucks are going to appear on the other player's board. So if you play a really big truck and that shunts 2 trucks across to their factory at the same time, then you might be able to completely evade the careful networks of pipes that they've built to snaffle up your goods as soon as they arrive. But where's this truck coming from? I didn't want this truck to arrive. That's terrible. Where's... I didn't choose that truck. Where has it come from?
Ah, but you haven't mentioned the most delicious rule. You can send those truck cards to the other person's factory.
But that's diabolical. That's ridiculous. That's arguably, tactically, most of the time, not an especially good choice.
Usually not, no. But sometimes.
Just knowing that you can potentially do this is so exciting. But even as a gotcha, it's something that mechanically is likely to be beneficial to the player you're doing it to in the long term. And it's one of the many reasons why this game doesn't ever feel mean. The other player can storm ahead and sometimes do some silliness with your trucks, but they can't do anything to mess with your factory. I mean, yes, I'm stealing all of the goods you load onto trucks almost immediately after you've shipped them, but you've shipped them. They're not your problem anymore. It doesn't affect you. And it's this that brings the curious nature of Curious Cargo back into the foreframe. Yeah, you don't feel the slimes, and they're all gone now. They're literally in the bin. But there is something about this that's farcical despite being fiddly. And yet the silliness of the futility of shipping a good and then taking the same good, and none of this gets in the way from the fact that fundamentally when you're playing, you feel like you're playing something tremendously robust. This is a game that really does allow you to react and pivot. A game where you're not just trying to outdo the other person and get more points than them at doing the same thing. All of the different ways that you can win this game are not only different, but they actually pull in different directions. The other player might be shipping cargo like crazy, but if you don't try and beat them at that and simply try and intercept everything they send, then you might just steal that win from them. The game does have points, but you often don't count them. At the end of the game, I've got a star. You don't have a star, which means I win. There's even a lose condition. If you do not ship 2 of each type of cargo, it doesn't matter how well you've done at the end of the game, you've lost. And this provides a sharp punch of closure that just ends the game quickly without any bean counting and fiddling around, but also provides simple targets for players. Even a game that feels and looks very mismatched, like you're never going to catch up, will often be decided by an asymmetrical tussle that will play out within the final few turns. And the whole of this game is mostly played simultaneously, with this connection track here being used whenever doing something that requires you to know who goes first. That rarely ever happens, which means this game is fast, and there's a depth of complexity here that means you're going to want to keep playing it again and again. And this is the point where I show you what else is in the box, all right? Firstly, we've got a whole bunch of double-sided factory sheets allowing you to try different scenarios and setups and mix it up. And then we've got the variant which uses 3 different colours of cargo, adding purple crystals to the red batteries and blue goops, and flipping over your little sheets here to reveal a entirely more drastically horrible puzzle. Absolutely no cut is wasted here. Flipping over these tiles reveals a dark side with 3 different types of pipe colour. And this explosion into a new wing of the manor is only mentioned just right at the end of the manual, with a little tiny box that says, oh, you can play this, but with a warning that it shouldn't be attempted until players are thoroughly proficient in the standard game. And usually you get this kind of warning in a board game saying, do not try the advanced versions. And we think, yeah. And we dive in after maybe one game, maybe for the first game. This isn't messing around. I tried it with Tom and it just broke our brains. So as you can see from now, this is a terrifyingly dense box of crunchy treats that has an awful lot more going for it than you could imagine of something of that stature. It's an obvious and easy, and from me, a huge recommendation from Shut Up and Sit Down. A fabulously layered head-to-head game with some elements to provide handicaps for players where they're required. But really, this is the stuff that rainy days dream of. You know, just being stuck inside, maybe in a little caravan with one other person, and playing it head-to-head again and again, and just immersing yourself in this fantastic 4-dimensional pipey puzzle. Ooh, what a fantastic thing to crack out instead of chess. And what a perfect game to bring up as we continue with Shut Up and Sit Down's Chess Month. Because yes, we know we made loads of videos saying that chess was quite boring literally just before Netflix released The Queen's Gambit and made chess look really sexy and cool, and it's a fabulous TV show, but chess is boring. I'll die on this hill, alright? You'll never take me alive!
They'll never take me alive either, or find all the orphans I have working for me in my mysterious factory.
You should probably keep that quiet, Tom. I'm pretty sure that's actually illegal.
Oh, what?
And that's all the review she wrote. Hey, listen, if you're looking for something a little less cerebral and dense, then you should definitely check out our Chess Month set of videos. Whole bunch of 2-player games that might be the perfect alternative. And hey, finally, did you know it's December? We don't make a big deal of this, but twice a year, we like to remind people that Shut Up and Sit Down basically runs on donations. If you think what we do is wicked, maybe we've steered you away from a terrible game, maybe we've encouraged you to get a game and it's your brand new favourite, maybe you just like us being silly and we bring you some warmth and you have some disposable income that you do not care too much about, then maybe consider watching our little video explaining what we're going to be doing next year amongst other things, or just go to this URL and maybe just chuck us some disposable dollars. If not, don't worry about it. We're just glad that you're watching videos. And as a special treat, here is some footage of some little slime people jiggling about.